The USMCA, or the new NAFTA as some are calling it, being negotiated between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says Democrats have now reached a deal with the Trump administration that would bring the trade pact to a vote in Congress. Now, of course, this has been held up for a long time. This has taken a lot longer than some would say it should have, but now maybe finally getting
Trade deals like this are hard. I mean, first the administration has to negotiate the trade deal, but it doesn't count until the U.S. Congress ratifies it, and also the legislatures in Mexico and Canada have to ratify it, which they've done. So we've been the last holdout. What Democrats wanted was more guarantees that the new labor standards that apply to Mexico will actually be enforced. How do we know that Mexico is actually enforcing these labor standards? And they need to enforce those labor standards to have parity with the U.S. market. Otherwise, if you're not doing that, there's more incentive for U.S. companies to just move all the work to Mexico where the standards are lower. So the Democrats wanted the U.S. to actually be able to go to Mexico and investigate factories, inspect their factories to see if they're upholding their labor standards. Mexico wasn't keen on that. I mean, we wouldn't be either, if you think about it.
Right.
The solution here is probably there's going to be some sort of third-party process that both sides will agree to that will handle the inspections and make sure the labor standards are being upheld. And there's a political calculation here, too. So I got to say, Nancy Pelosi looks really smart. So at the same time, she is sort of putting impeachment on a fast track. She's also legislating and getting done some business that actually needs to get done. I mean, it's important to the U.S. economy that this trade deal go into effect, and we can just have seamless trade with Canada and Mexico instead of worrying about some disruption if the old agreement goes away.
And I've seen estimates that 200,000 jobs could be added to the economy if this deal goes through. Have you seen those estimates as well?
Well, yes, and 200,000 is as you know, Scott, I mean, that's a very small number of jobs, but it's better than losing jobs, right? And most analyses that I'm familiar with on the USMCA, it's not, there are no groundbreaking changes here. It updates some things from the old North American Free Trade Agreement covering digital trade, for example, possibly some slightly better terms on agriculture for American farmers. So it's not, I don't think anybody expects this is going to have a giant impact on the U.S. economy. What would have a giant impact is if Trump did the other thing he threatened to do, which is pull out of NAFTA. That would be a disaster. I don't think Trump was actually going to do that, but it'd be nice if we don't have to worry about it.
And by the way, we are seeing right now Pelosi approaching the podium here to address the USMCA negotiations. This is happening right now live in Washington.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This is a day we've all been working to and working for on the path to yes. We were in rain for a while, but until we could cross a certain threshold of enforcement for our workers' rights, for environment, and for the prescription drug issue, as you know, they were three of the areas that we had put out there. I want to thank our chairman, Richie Neal, chair of the Ways and Means Committee, the 8 members of the task force, and I will acknowledge momentarily by thanking them for their leadership in negotiating on different segments of the legislation. I also want to thank Richard Trumka, the president of the AFL-CIO. He was persistent, was satisfied, knowledgeable. He really got us to a place which is a far distance from where we started with the proposal that was given to us. There is no question, of course, that this trade agreement is much better than NAFTA. But in terms of our work here, it is infinitely better than what was initially proposed by the administration. And I credit our chairman, Richie Neal, for helping us navigate all of these places. The unity of our caucus on specific priorities in order to get the job done. And again, the brilliance and knowledge of Richard Trumka as to the ramifications of every provision that was in the legislation. We'll be handing out a memo from the Ways and Means Committee, you may have it, which explains why we are so proud of the distance that we have come from where we started with the administration on this legislation. It's a victory for America's workers. It's one that we take great pride in advancing. The members of the 8 members of the task force, Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, who has a markup in her committee about workers' rights or in appropriations, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, you'll be hearing from, Mike Thompson of California, Terry Sewell of Alabama, Suzanne Bonamici of Oregon, whom you'll be hearing from, Jimmy Gomez of California, you'll be hearing from as well. Where are my others? John Larson of Connecticut, Earl Blumenauer of Oregon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here we are. And now it's my honor to yield to Richie. He was indeed a maestro to make all of this happen. It's with great respect and admiration for his work and gratitude that I yield to the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Richie Neal.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Every once in a great while, you get to participate in a "it will never happen" moment, and we are witnessing that today. The other value of technology, I will point out, was after a round of intense finishing conversations and negotiations over the weekend that started on Saturday morning with the Speaker, myself, and the Trade Rep, Robert Lighthizer. We went back and Mr. Trumpka, the Speaker, was on a hunting expedition. We spoke with him frequently. But the Speaker talked to me earnestly about we're near. And on Sunday, when Tom Brady was about to take it in, all of a sudden I looked at my phone. It said Pelosi for caller ID. Long wisdom tells me, the hell with Brady, take the call.
And I was watching Baltimore and the 49ers.
So this is a transformative agreement. It's a template, I believe, for future agreements. Our constant emphasis was on enforceability. We fixed that. And the idea and the notion that the president of the AFL-CIO, Rich Trumpka, would be supportive of this initiative, I think, tells the story. But this is more than a triumph for organized labor. It's a triumph for workers everywhere across America. In terms of the working group members, I want to say that they strengthened the labor standards. They strengthened the environmental chapters. They enhanced the verification mechanisms for environmental trade. With the unflinching leadership of the Speaker, we also secured important changes in USMCA that preserve Congress's ability to change U.S. law to address the crisis we are facing with respect to high prescription drug prices. Over the intense period of these negotiations with the administration, I repeatedly emphasized that USMCA will deserve a vote because it's an agreement that Democrats shaped. I don't think anybody on this dais would have said 2 months ago that we would have been able to get as far as we did in this negotiation. It was based upon goodwill, but also a determination that we acknowledge the problems that have existed in the past with enforceability. And it was a very telling moment. This was shared with the media. On the day of the break in August with the working group, I said to the trade rep the last meeting, I said, nothing has fostered more disagreement about trade than the lack of enforceability. And the trade rep said to me, you are absolutely right. And he said, I want to tell you, and this is, I think I'm not speaking out of school, he said, there have been people in the State Department, the Defense Department, and the Oval Office over the years who said, don't get this one upset and don't get that one upset because we might need them on future geographic issues. He said, our position has been that we are supportive of the thrust of what you want to do here. And I think that the initiative that we offered, his position, I think the offering that we have in front of us today is indicative of the goodwill. But some of the members on this task force, and including the chairman of the subcommittee, Mr. Blumenauer, what a job they did. These were intense, argumentative, angry negotiations. I mean, this got really hot on a number of occasions. I think we set a world record for hanging up on each other, myself and the trade rep. And but at the same time, we also knew that this was an opportunity that we couldn't let get away from us. And we did that. So we will continue to share more details in text. The last point is a reminder that I traveled to Mexico with a delegation to meet the president of Mexico Then right after that, I traveled to Canada to meet with the Prime Minister of Canada and the Minister for Defense and Trade, Freeland. They are, I believe, they were good partners in this. They conceded just about to every point that we asked for because of the following: enforceability, enforceability, enforceability. So with that, Madam Speaker, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, we're going to turn it back to Jan Schakowsky.
All right, that was Richard Neal, who is the House Ways and Means Committee chairman, saying, Rick Newman, they conceded to almost everything we wanted.
Yeah, so it looks like the House is now going to pass the USMCA. That will get passed by the Senate as well. So it looks like that is going to go into effect possibly by the end of this year once they get through all the procedural stuff. A remarkable split screen moment here from Washington, D.C., though, today. So an hour ago, Pelosi was standing there with some other committee chairmen and chairwomen saying we are going to vote to impeach Trump on these 2 articles of impeachment. That was very tense and solemn, and now very chatty. You know, they're talking about their favorite football teams, and isn't this great? So, you know, I think the Nancy Pelosi strategy here is very clever, which is this is a legitimate victory for Trump. This is something Trump said he was going to do as a candidate, and it's one of the few things now it looks like he's actually going to be able to say, look, I did it. I updated the old North American Free Trade Agreement.
Tax cuts, USMCA.
He is going to say it's the greatest trade deal in the history of America.
So they're okay giving him that victory.
They're giving him the victory while smothering it with impeachment, is what they're doing.
It's not.
And what is the strategy behind that? What do they get?
Take away the good news. Smother what is legitimate good news for Trump with terrible news, which is that the House is going to impeach him.
Well, or that's the cynic response, but or could some naive Pollyannish person say they actually recognized that we needed to get the deal done and make a new trade deal with Canada and Mexico?
So now this all moves to the battle of the messaging. So I think an objective view is that it is good that this new trade deal updates the old North American free trade. That's a good thing for the U.S. economy. But who's going to win the messaging war? Is it going to be Trump saying, look, how many millions of jobs I'm going to create because of this new trade deal? Or is it going to be Democrats saying, maybe you got a little something done, but you're completely corrupt and you need to be removed from office?
Or
so that's the big messaging deal. That's the big messaging deal that we're all going to be sick of in about one day from now.
And it might just keep everyone on their side. So if you don't like Trump, you view this as a terrible thing.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that, but I think there's a strong case. In terms of who are you actually going to vote for in 2020, at least 10% of the electorate is up for grabs, and that 10% will determine who wins.
Fair. Yeah.
Going to be very interesting. Rick, thanks for rocking a whole block
guys.
with us.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.